It's really a joy to be here at Sand, and it's also sweet for this to be Sunday afternoon, where we've all been having such a good time and getting a chance to cross-fertilize and be inspired by one another and share in the field. And this has been beautiful and rich for me. So, considering we've all had so much wonderful inspirational thought and teaching, I thought it would be refreshing to start the session by just dropping into presence with a short guided meditation and a mantra. And I'm going to work with a mantra that is very, very simple and hopefully will just be very natural for you to drop into, and that is Om Namah Shivaya. So, why don't we just settle, close our eyes if that's our preferred way to drop in. Just follow the rise and fall of your own breath. Each inhale, a welcome. Each exhale, a melting. Naturally dropping in to the stillness. Naturally just letting go of all thoughts of what you think you are. What non-duality is. Empty your mind of what you think is true or false. Worthy or unworthy. Hold on to nothing. No need to cling to anything you learned before about anything. Just open here, wherever you are. Just come with wholly empty hands. Just come with wholly empty hands. Into the source of your being and all being. Through the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, I bow to the Absolute. Please dissolve everything in the way. Om I've been singing that mantra and many others since I was a teenage girl. My first real conscious experience of the non-dual was as a 13-year-old, going through a tricky patch that looked on the outside like a young girl having a desperately awful depression experience for which I was hospitalized into an adult psych unit. What was really going on was a bad case of separation. Only that wasn't what was mirrored at the time. Only my felt experience was of definitely being separate from something I knew I absolutely needed and couldn't articulate. I couldn't feel the love. I couldn't feel meaning. I couldn't feel anything real. And what I realized as I was 13 in that psych unit and around adults going through all sorts of forms of mental illness was that everyone really was having a spiritual crisis. Everyone was suffering from variants of the same thing, separation from their own heart, not just their emotional heart, but the heart, the core, what is ultimately real. So for me that felt like absolutely no love, no meaning, no purpose, no joy. We don't do very well when we're cut off from the heart. We need love like we need oxygen. And unless we know that we are that love, there's a lot of trouble and suffering in our life because we search for it outside of ourselves, and that takes us into all kinds of problematic and distorted ways of being. So this experience of boundless love, which was my first conscious taste of non-duality, came alive spontaneously, probably through the surrender that happens when you've exhausted yourself in resistance for a bit too long. But somehow, even though I don't really know how, I turned towards this great unknown that in my heart I called God. Even though I didn't come from a religious family, so there was no real reason I would turn to that. But the prayer wasn't an enlightened prayer, it wasn't a non-dual prayer, it was a very down-to-earth human prayer, help. Nothing wrong with the help prayer. It's a humble, real, down-to-earth prayer. So when the help came, it felt like an inner explosion of light and fullness and beauty. It felt like being plugged into the mains of scintillating, absolute, boundless love. And I was that love, and everything and everyone was that love. It was like a river that flowed underneath everything and everyone. So this was such a powerful experience that I was okay. It gave me the inner resource to go back into life, to go back into the circumstances that had been so unbearable, that had seemed to lead to the depression. Only I was connected and tied to something I knew was real and true, and that put me on the path of study. So as a youngster, I spent a lot of hours in the Theosophical Society in Perth, Western Australia, which was about the only thing that was around in my culture at the time, devouring anything I could find that had something to say about what I'd experienced and needed to understand it. I knew it inwardly, I knew its meaning, I knew its significance, I knew its power. But I had no idea how to live it. And I knew I had to find the way to live it. And so that drove years of study and practice. Christian mystical practice, Sufi practice, meditation practice, serious inner work as if my life depended upon it, which it did. But what I realized in retrospect was that while I'd had that deep taste of grace as boundless love, somehow there was still a lot of excavation process to happen. Like anyone, I had a pretty tricky ego structure, full of control and fear and doubt and insecurity and envy and anger, grievances, hurts, things that needed to be digested. And it didn't sit with me, really, that we could just transcend those things. I didn't really buy that. Something in me knew that wasn't quite right. And as I looked around at various spiritual communities I was involved with, I always felt a sadness when I encountered this juxtaposition of someone who could pontificate beautiful things and yet treated their loved ones in a shitty way. Something about that wasn't right. I wanted passionately to live what I'd tasted. So I went to work on myself, really, but what I now see was that the view I had about these troublesome, tricky knots of the personality was that somehow I had to get rid of them. And I had a lot of tricky, knobbly bits, really. I know exactly what my little tricky, knobbly bits were, and anyone who'd spent a lot of time with it knew well what they were too. Right? Control was the big constellation for me. Insecurity. I understood through psychological work the roots of that in my family history, but just understanding the roots of that and how they got constellated through my family of origin, somehow that didn't fully liberate. It didn't quite do what I wanted. I didn't quite help me live as boundless love. So I found myself at the age of 35 after 2 decades on the path, and 10 of those as an ordained minister, running a seminary for others to become spiritual counselors and non-denominational ministers, and already dedicated to a life of spiritual service and established in my path. And something felt missing, and I don't know why it happened that I was given the opportunity to go to the ashram of Sri Ramana Maharshi in Tiruvannamalai, but there it was, just before my 35th birthday. And I wasn't seeking any particular spiritual glory. I was a little burnt out, to be honest. I was very happy to go somewhere where I could just zip the lip and be an introvert. So I was very happy to go to the ashram, be quiet, walk the mountain, and the privilege of sitting in these caves that had been Ramana Maharshi's home for many years before the world really came to know about him. And I had no special connection to Ramana at that time. I had respect, deep appreciation, but there was no particular bond, and I wasn't seeking one. But it's usually when you're not seeking that the grace comes. So that day, I just sat down on a dusty old cushion in a musty, humid, airless cave with plenty of sound coming from the street below, honking noises, bustling, noisy India. And I felt this presence of absolute silence immediately. Firstly, there was gratitude for this presence that was thick with silence, thick with living silence. And then something gave way, and I heard this transmission that stopped everything I knew. Be nothing, do nothing, get nothing, become nothing, seek for nothing, relinquish nothing. Be as you are, rest in God. And as that thunderous silence reverberated like a Zen bell through my being, there was no more me, there was no God, there was no other, there was no world, there was no thingness. Pure being, shining. And I was that. So this was quite a different flavor of the non-dual than the flavor of boundless love. Wasn't separate. But this felt like the primordial depth out of which boundless love is born. And I was in a state of nothing, no one, and therefore no problem, no angst, no worry, no concern, no resistance, no fear, no me equals no problem, for 3 weeks. Utter quiet, utterly natural, peace beyond description. And I realized that in the 3 years prior to this, I had been getting a little close to this place in my meditation practice. Only I had a little rapprochement with that. I was pulling back from it, all so subtly, because the greatest concern I had was being nothing meant no personal significance, no existence, and no capacity to function. Those were the 2 deepest fears that had acted as glass ceilings in my practice up until that moment. And the beautiful discovery of realizing the thing that I had been most concerned about was the gate. I'm nothing, which my personality had always experienced as not good enough, somehow not right, somehow flawed, broken, cracked, not okay in some way. And when I speak to people, when they really open up and tell me the truth, the thing that's hardest for them, everyone I speak to tells me this is the trouble for them too. This feeling of not being enough, not being okay. So the very thing that I had been trying to repair through spiritual means, through psychological work, wasn't what I thought. It was the doorway, not to ego deficiency, but to pure being. So Nisargadatta said something so beautiful. He said, when I look inside and I see I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I look outside and see I am everything, that is love. Between these 2 poles, my life unfolds. So this experience changed my center of gravity very deeply, but it takes a lot to integrate such a change. And when the state shifted about 3 weeks after the opening in the cave, I happened to be teaching a class at the time, and there was a particularly challenging knot happening in the group dynamic that was very familiar. And the state changed back into more ordinary awareness. As that happened, I heard the same voice that spoke in the cave saying, now integrate it. And my heart said yes, because I knew there's a vast difference between tasting moments of grace, having a taste of the non-dual, of deep reality, of the boundless, and living enlightened awareness in every second. And my heart wanted to live it permanently, continuously. That was my prayer. So I understood already from my years of practice, well, it's not about holding on to a state. Enlightenment is deeper than any one state, even the most exquisite. So there was a whole other leg of the journey, period of undoing that went on, where all the things that my familiar identity used to constellate around and use as a scaffolding to hold itself up and function and relate started to quake and rumble. So I saw one night in meditation, as I was just sitting in the silence and being in the pure not knowing of who I was, how to live, how to practice, whether I should teach or not, whether I had anything to say to anyone. I really didn't know. All my devotional practices had dropped away. All my prayer practices had dropped away. I didn't know who to pray to or what to say anymore. It was awkward. Classic dark night of the soul. Dark night of the soul, not as we often use it in common language of like, oh, going through a really hard time, but dark night of the soul in the way John of the Cross uses it, which is entering into that territory where the practices that have sustained us no longer can guide us in the terrain we are in. So this takes some major spiritual cojones to navigate that terrain because it's so vulnerable. There's nothing to cling to, no familiar reference points. And so what I found was the ego consciousness tries to reconstellate itself by whatever means possible. It's like a little mad scrambling going on. So I could feel that happening. And I would pray in those moments, even though I didn't know what I believed in, I would just say, help. Help. To what, I don't know, but just help. And I heard this soft voice, keep opening, keep softening, keep allowing. And at first I thought the swings that were happening between this very transcendent, deeply non-attached, completely peaceful, nothing and no one consciousness, and other moments where I was just an ordinary human being, struggling to accept things that felt brutal, familiar reference points being taken away. So there were moments where, in that felt sense of the human having a tough time with that, I thought at first it was some failure to hold firm to the unchanging awareness. And as I kept hearing that soft, loving voice of wisdom saying, keep opening, keep softening, keep allowing, this too, I realized that deeper non-duality didn't mean ego amputation. It didn't mean cutting out the parts of ourselves that don't let go easily. It didn't mean aggressing on our humanity in the name of enlightenment or becoming a non-dual fundamentalist. It meant opening in and through absolutely everything, the full spectrum, raw animal humanity and transcendent divinity, and the ticket price for that is feeling everything. So, okay, all right, that was the practice, feeling everything. And I started to see that this beautiful transmission that had reverberated by grace in that cave wasn't just a moment of grace that brought about a shift, initiated a shift in my consciousness. It was actually a practice of ego relaxation. Practice that wasn't about needing to fix or repair or transcend or reject. A practice that invited the one who thinks he or she is the doer, that thinks he or she is the one that needs to become something better or more spiritual, more holy, more accomplished, that he or she who thinks she needs to get rid of certain seeming flaws. That was the one who was asked to resign, to relax, to cease and desist the trying to do it. Because that self can't do it. And that is the truth of I'm not good enough. Right? The part of ourselves that thinks it's separate can't do it. That's true. What if that's a beautiful realization? When we accept, I can't do it. I can't push myself into this non-dual condition. I don't know how to live it. I don't know how to stand across from my beloved when they're doing that thing that I find so hard. And just be there. I don't know what to say. That is real. I don't know how to be real. Then all of a sudden we are ripe, we are here, we are nakedly, spontaneously available for the presence, the living presence, to fully take up residence, which is our function. Every single one of us are window panes of the absolute. We are interconnected window panes, as if part of a great infinite matrix with no ending and no beginning. And there is work to do, even though that's an oxymoron. The work, really, is just being honest with the things that occlude the window pane, the dust that is really the patterns from the past, the places where we're not really willing to tell the truth because of some fear or some old sense of shame or some feeling of inadequacy. What if we refused to pretend anymore? So I started realizing that this was something incredibly important. This was the living edge of surrender. Not surrender transcendent to get out of, give up, surrender in and through. Opening, softening, allowing, letting the me construct and the history of that me construct and the hurt that comes with that me construct and the fear and the doubt and the insecurity and the hurt and the hate, letting it melt. This for me felt like a very feminine way of living the non-dual. You see, all the great traditions say to us there is some work to do, even though it's a pathless path ultimately. So we're all dealing with effectively some hardness in ourselves, some place where we're frozen, not quite free. But like having a hard block of ice. And so often I think it's easy to get into some idea that we need to hack away at that hard block of ice, to break it down. Whereas if we take it into the warmth of the sun, what happens? The ice melts. The hardness of what we thought was those things in the way becomes transparent and fluid again. And of course the warmth of the sun is really a metaphor for unconditional love. When we bring the places where we know in our heart of hearts we're still not free, there's some occlusion, there's some fear, there's some pride reconstellating. If we bring it completely nakedly to the presence of unconditional love, love melts the ice. And that which we thought was the thing in the way becomes the vessel. The ice turns to water that hydrates the world. And so I suppose that's really what I'm saying to you from my own body of experience and my work with people, where essentially I'm inviting them to bring forward the things that seem to be in the way, that seem to be the knobbly, crunchy bits that obscure us from living our heart's deepest prayer, really living it in each moment. And we look at that together, we meet it absolutely all the way together, while doing nothing. No need to fix, no need to improve, no need to change, no need to get. Absolutely undefended presence. And grace happens. Our part is the being naked in the face of it all. The willingness to be that honest. The courage to be here, holding on to nothing, not even our cherished spiritual concepts. That is how we are found by a grace deeper than our mind. That is how we come with wholly empty hands under the source of our being. And Ramana said, in due course we will come to know that our glory lies where we cease to exist. Only the beautiful thing is we often hit that fear, I'll die. Only the only thing that can die is our construct. Because nothing real ever can be threatened. And nothing unreal exists. And in that, we find the peace of God. I wish we had more time. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you for being here, in beauty of our shared presence.